Hey, Seven Figure Builder family. This is Julie Baranick, your host of Seven Figure Builder Show. And I'm here with my friend Sophia Hyde. Hey, Sophia.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. And I am so excited to talk about your book and all the amazing things you've got going on. But where in the world are you?
Yeah, I currently live in Central Florida. I've been here since my family moved in third grade in 1995. Um, and I don't know how much longer I'll be here though. That's why I preface that with that. So I have been here for a few decades, and might not much longer. So yeah, that's where I am today.
Nice, nice. It's always an adventure.
Yes.
So, for those that haven't had the pleasure to meet you, can you tell us a bit about your business?
Sure. I am a life coach. Most of my clients are female entrepreneurs. I was in business for a few years when I got really, was a little frustrated that I didn't have the resources that I really wanted for my clients to be, recommend a book or to learn a concept. I never saw myself as an author, even though I'm an avid reader. I just felt like there was enough already out there. There's so many great books. I don't need to write one. There's enough. But ultimately, I was hungry for something to recommend to my clients that would tie in all these concepts. So I don't have to be really like, read these 7 books. They don't
Yeah.
want to. That's why they hired a coach. They want someone to simplify this for them, right? So there's all these concepts that were all over the place that I wanted to bring in. And there was ways that things were not being said. There was gaps. And anyways, all that to say, after a few years in business, I realized that I needed to write my own book to be able to help my clients get the maximum amount of results, and see things through a different lens than what was being offered. And so a few months ago, I launched my first book, Unleash Your Favorite Self. And so now I'm a life coach and author. I've been a speaker the whole time. So I go to conferences sometimes when asked and enjoy that. But yeah, so I'm an author, speaker, and coach.
I love it. I love it. So, talk to us about the premise of the book. I mean, unleash your favorite self. Like, what does that mean?
Yes. So when I first started coaching, you look for the language of how am I helping people? What am I helping them do? Be their best self, be successful, achieve their potential. Like there's all this language. I was like looking for how do I say the thing I'm trying to say? And eventually I stumbled on the word favorite. And it was like a full body yes. You could just feel like my whole nervous system just relaxed. I was like, I finally have the language that I've been looking for, because my problem with the language that's dominated for decades in the personal growth and development space is it doesn't matter how much you try to shift it or change it. When we say something like be successful or be your best self, our brains are wired to have a certain connotation of what that is supposed to mean. And in America, it often has to do with finances, material wealth. Not that those things are bad. It's just that there's a lot more to life and they may not be in alignment for you, right? Like, what if success to you is a tiny house on some acreage, you may, and in a walkable community with no car, like, you know what I'm saying? It's so
Right.
unique to each person. And what I loved about being your favorite self is that the only connotation of the word favorite is that you have to define it. Whether it's your favorite ice cream or your favorite movie, we can't guess it for you.
Right.
You have to tell us. And so I coach under this philosophy of being your favorite self. And I walk into every conversation, every client relationship, knowing that it's like wiping the entire slate clean, because there's nothing to bring to the table of assumptions of what you probably want in life. I don't know. And it all begins with you have to tell me. And for some people, they've been so caught up in what the world tells them they should want, they're expected to want. So all these expectations and shoulds and these burdens we place on ourselves, we end up trapping us in boxes. And so the starting point that I begin with is to wipe all that away and get grounded on what you actually want. And I focus on 10 different areas of life. I call it the favorite life wheel. And we look at these different centers and how do you define them? And then we begin the coaching process. But for many people, they haven't actually stopped to ask, is what do I want in this area? They're just walking through the motions of what society or religion or family or school, like some system somewhere told them they were supposed to desire there.
Absolutely. And that's what I think of is our favorites typically are a combination of our entire past life, right? Like all of our preferences, everything that we've learned, and we feed it into this is what I should be or what I envision myself being. But can you walk us through some of those areas of life? Like how do people get clarity from what they thought they should be yesterday to what they actually want to be in the future or what they envision themselves as?
Yeah. Yeah. So the 10 areas of life that I define on the favorite life wheel, we have your mind,
Mhm.
your body, and your spiritual spoke, which a lot of people are used to those, right? We have finances and career. We have family. Um, and then we also have your friendships, because I think that that is not talked about enough, how important relationships are to health. We also have your self-care. It is its own spoke. And I define self-care as energy management. It has nothing to do with pampering. It has nothing to do with services and products. It has everything to do with how you feel, your energy, exhaustion, like giving from a place of abundance versus giving from a place of exhaustion.
Mhm.
So self-care is its own spoke. Contribution is a spoke. And contribution is how you are leaving the world a better place. And for some people, this is it can be as simple as your family, maybe you're a caretaker, or just honestly doing your own healing work. Because when you aren't triggered by things and you're not dumping pain onto other people, that's enough. Like your contribution can just be, I'm not passing on my baggage. Like it stops here.
I left it at the door.
Yeah, that may be it, but we got to define it. Like, what is your contribution? Because when we know, like when we all want to feel good that we are doing something for this world, right? It's just some intrinsically inside of us. And then the last spoke, I call it the blank spoke, and it's a bonus one because it's unique to each person. For me personally, my 10th spoke is my marriage, but I have clients who are single by choice, and you don't have to have a partnership I have some that aren't even interested in dating. Like having a romantic life is just not on the table for them. And again, I don't believe in shitting on people and projecting that you're supposed to want that, even though I have the husband and 2 kids.
Right.
I've got I even drive a minivan. Like I've got the stereotype, and I love living in the stereotype. I'm really aligned and happy here, but that doesn't mean it's for everybody. And so that blank spoke can be, some people put their hobbies, arts, creativity, major projects. I've had clients do like house renovations and decluttering, up to like feeding into, for many people, I'm surprised how often art actually does come up because they have this creative expression that is like trapped inside of them and doesn't have an outlet. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of things that you can put in that last spoke, but it's customizable to the individual.
So what does that transformation look like, right? As people are figuring out those different wheels of their life and what is important to them, where do they go with it next?
Sure. Everyone's journey truly is unique. But some of the things I see really common for people is, you'd think if you're going to work with a coach and you're going to focus on your goals, we're going to look at your habits. We're going to look at aligning you're instinctually, you would think it probably means adding something to your plate, right? Like, oh, we're going to do this now and this. And I mean, I hired this coach,
Right.
so I'm
Focus on more things.
these things.
Right.
I can't tell you how often the work is actually letting go. It's lessening. It is whether we're letting go of an expectation, right? So I just had somebody last week come to me with a really low spoke, and knowing everything else I knew about the rest of her life, I thought, it just didn't add up why this one was so low. And when the more I dug in, I said, tell me about your definition of the 10. Let me wrap my mind around what the gap is,
Mm.
And the gap was, it wasn't hers. She was supposed to wing on herself. I'm supposed
Right.
to want this. And then when we wiped that off and we said, well, what do you actually want? She was able to realize, I think I'm actually content here. Like the disconnect was the gap between what was being placed on her as like the not enoughness that she was living
Mhm.
in. And so realizing that she actually already was enough in that area. And it was fascinating how she leaped from a 3 to a 9 in a
Wow.
conversation in one spoke because of a mindset shift, right? And so sometimes I do see a lot of growth coming just from actually the letting go.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's letting go of people. That doesn't happen in one session, right? But sometimes the letting go looks like releasing relationships and certain people in our lives that are draining and exhausting. So, anyways, yeah, I would say that unleashing the reason I chose the word unleash your favorite self, is because think about the visual of that. What else gets unleashed? Like an animal from its cage, a bird. Like you think anytime you think of the word unleash, a leash is coming off or somebody's getting uncaged. And what that means is they're walking away from something. So what that implies is that your favorite self is already in you. It doesn't have to be added. It's not more work we're putting on the table. It's actually a conscious decision to leave something behind, and what the thing you're walking towards is actually all inside of you. So unleashing your favorite self is truly more of a shedding process than like, I think of hiring a personal trainer and now we're going to add all these hours to, and trust me, I work out. I strongly believe in regular exercise and working out and prioritizing it. So this isn't like a diss to spending time in the gym. I spend a lot of time in the gym. But I'm just saying, when you hire a trainer, you think of, I am now adding this to my plate,
Yeah.
right? This is now these hours I'm going to be putting in. And so we need to make more room for something more in my calendar. The unleashing your favorite self process, most of the time, is actually a decluttering. It's a letting go. And I think that's probably what would surprise people the most, is that it's not more on your plate. Usually it means less.
I love that. And it's funny. I was recently reading the 10X is easier than 2X book, if you've come across that one.
I haven't.
Oh, you should. It's very good. But the premise of it is very similar in the business world. And I see the same thing for personal development and what you're describing, that like in that book, just the correlation that comes to my mind is if your vision is on what's going to 10X my business, there's very few things that you need to do to actually move the needle that far, right? Versus if it's just 2X, like you can keep doing a bunch of busy stuff and it will eventually get you farther in life or farther in your business. But if you want exponential growth, you actually focus on fewer, more powerful things,
Yeah.
which I see the same correlation with your 10 areas of life is, okay, focus on what really makes a difference in your world. Let go of the rest, right? Like the 80-20 rule. The 20% is going to make 80% of the difference, right? And you focus on those things and you can actually move forward, which I love that.
Yeah. And along that same line, I can't tell you how frequently um, one habit changes it all. So the process I use, we begin with writing you're clarifying what your actual definitions are. Okay. Then we see where you at on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at now? Right. And then we look at those gaps, what has to change to fill these gaps. And I focus really heavily on habits. And trust me, you guys have probably talked plenty about all the wonderful books that have written on habits. I probably don't need to teach this audience about the importance of habits. But we look at that, right? And very regularly, the habit that needs to be changed, or that they desire to change, it bleeds into several areas, right? We're not talking about 10 habits for 10. Oh, I'm working on all 10 areas of my life. So now these 10 new habits. Not usually, not usually. Most of the time, it's if I were to change this one thing in this one area, it's going to have this domino effect in all these other places. So usually when it's a little shift here, it's a little shift there, but because these spokes, they're all so interconnected, when it's like a rubber band that when you stretch it over here, it pulls it over there, right? And so when we focus on one thing and one habit, generally it's pulling up 3, 4, 5 areas all at the same time because everything is so interconnected.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, as people make this change in their life,
Mhm.
it impacts people around them and how people view them. And often this business growth world can be a lonely journey. Like, what do you see for women in particular who are going through this transformation and, how it impacts the world around them?
I haven't met anybody who has achieved very high levels of success and got to bring everybody in their life with them who was there before. If there is a study or a case or an example of it, I would love to hear it. And I'm sure it's beautiful, and damn, is she lucky. But it's not the norm. So the norm is the more you step into your favorite self and achieve it, you're going to have an abundance of joy. It just comes. It's just natural. Okay. Because when you're living in alignment with who you're true, I believe your favorite self is already inside of you. She's just asking to be born. She's asking for all these layers to come off, but she's already in there. She's buried and covered up by all this garbage. And so when we remove all the stuff and we let her shine, you radiate joy because you are living in your alignment. And that's hard for some people to look at. Okay. And so whatever, because honestly, some of the shedding you might have had to do could have impacted people. They might not have liked certain
or they see a reflection of themselves in that.
Yes. And we only judge other people for what we judge ourselves for. And so when you rise and you are full of joy and you are experiencing wealth and you are experiencing abundance, every time people look at you, they will see the lack of joy, the lack of wealth, the lack of abundance inside of them, and you will become a walking trigger for them. Interestingly enough, the wealth and all that stuff, it's perfectly acceptable in men, but it's particularly triggering when we see a woman achieving those high levels. It does something inside of people because maybe parts of their life they believed they accepted the shoulds, right? They allowed society to shit on them because I am a woman. I can't have this or do this or be this or whatever. And so they've buried their success. They've buried their desires. I mean, we are taught at a very young age. It is like molded inside of us to be martyrs, to sacrifice ourselves for the betterment of the people around us. And so when people around you are in martyrdom and you have released that, it's hard to look at you if that person is judging themselves, if they are miserable. Okay. And that being said, part of the unleashing, that's why I say sometimes we lose people. And I would say that is the hardest part, whether it affects friendships or the way you interact with family is different. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anybody be able to be exempt from that truth. And so the concept that I teach, I write about this in the first chapter of my book. I think it's so important for us to really master this concept. It's actually from Judaism. And it's this concept that whenever we walk into a room, whatever version of you shows up, whether you are your authentic self or you're pretending to be something else, whoever you show up as, the math stays the same. But out of every 10 people, 1 will strongly dislike you, 2 will love and adore you, and the other 7 won't even notice. You're just a warm body. And what I see many women doing, because something inside of us, most women are people pleasers because we're taught to please the world around us. I see many women giving a lot of their attention to the 10%, the people who dislike them. And so that's like your haters, people who are criticizing you. You want to like prove them wrong or defend yourself. So for those people, you just got to let them be wrong about you. You just got to let it go. You got to just let them not like you. For the 70%, I actually see women and entrepreneurs exhausting themselves with that other 70% because it's like, notice me, like me. And maybe sometimes you really like them. You're like, this is a person or a group of people. I want them to notice me. I want them to like me. I want them to see my value. And they're just not going to. Whatever reason, they're just not going to. And so the concept that I often reiterate is to always be focusing on your 20%.
I love that.
Who are those 2 in 10? 20% of the people in this world will love and adore you. And make sure you're being your authentic self, the true version of you. Because if you're showing up as an artificial version, you're still going to attract 20%, but they're going to be attracted to a plastic you, a
Which is
you with a
exhausting.
mask. Yeah. And then you still don't get to be yourself. So then when you take the mask off, they're like, I don't like this. And you're like, well, then what's happening? Like, but had you walked into that room as your bold self, then you would have found the other two people who like that version of you, the real one. And so the quicker we can come and be at peace with who we really are and whatever our weirdnesses are, when we can just live in alignment with those, let the world see them, we will find our 2 in 10, that 20% of people who are genuinely attracted to us. And it's magnetic. So we are all in some way polarizing, whether we want to be or not, because it's like a magnetic attraction. So either they're attracted to you, or it's that polar and it pushes against, or maybe there's like nothing happens. Like we put it together, nothing happens. And if you can just accept that is the way, then you don't have to exhaust your energy trying to win over that 80%. And my recommendation is to just put the blinders on. Who is it that's naturally attracted to me? Where is it flowing? Where does the juice feel good? And just give all your energy to those people. And a lot of the rest of the stuff will work itself out when you're only giving your energy to your 20%.
I agree with you 100%. And as you do that, you become more confident in who you are because you're being your authentic self. Those people are attracted to you, and you get confirmation of yourself of like, okay, this is working. I keep, doing the things that are working, and they'll compound upon each other.
Yes. And these are people who will, because they actually like you,
Right.
they will build you up. They will encourage you. They will be a support system. You're not having to defend yourself or justify some choice you're making, because they're not there to tear you down. They want to be, they're excited to be able to be near you.
Yep, absolutely. And as people are going through this transformation, you mentioned earlier that you're married, right? So how does this factor into, if I can ask, like married life and family life and all of that?
Sure. It's not black and white. For me, fantastic, because my husband fell in love with the real me, right? And so the more that I shine, my husband likes a strong woman. And so he's like, hell yes, let's go. I know that everybody's talking about them, but I can't help but talk about like the Travis, Kelsey,
Mhm.
Taylor Swift example, right? I am in the camp. I was not a Swiftie, but dang, has this couple won me over. And so my sister and we now call ourselves half Swifties, because we're not like totally, but like we are part of some sort of a fan club.
Mhm.
And anyways, what I'm saying with that example, what I mean is, he, like, no matter how high she climbs, it's a man that can look at a woman's success and be legitimately like giddy for her.
Mhm.
And I have that in my marriage. That's like, he was attracted to a strong woman. We met when we were young. We were 18 and 20.
Wow,
And we've now been together for 19 years, or yeah, we're coming up on 19 years of being
that's
together.
awesome.
And so for me, and for him, because he's obviously grown and flourished in many ways too, our relationship has only gotten closer. But I can't say that for everybody. I have friends, I have some clients who, when you talk about the people who don't get to come with you, sometimes people are in a marriage with a person who is holding back their success because of their insecurities, their toxicity, like whatever their problem is. And so, yeah, it's not black and white. I did, in my book, in the 12th chapter, it's a chapter on the blank spoke, but I needed something to talk about, right? Because it's like blank. I can't,
Right.
So I
It can
did
be
talk about,
anything.
yeah, it can be anything, but since mine's about marriage, I'll go ahead and give you my experience and stories here. And one of the things, so I do go into detail on that in chapter 12. I share part of my marriage stories. And ultimately, the big shift in our marriage happened about 5 years in. We dated for 2 years, and then we were married for 5, so 7 years into being together. And it was. It's so much easier when you read a book, because this is going to feel out of left field, but I accidentally ended up at a sex conference. And
Oh.
that is a story in and of itself, because I didn't know I was going to one. And the details are in there. But what came out of that was understanding that the healthiest thing a marriage can have is full non-judgment communication. When you can fully open up to a person and share the most, like the scariest parts of your inside soul, and they can hear you and not laugh, not judge, not react, but catch you no matter what comes out of your mouth. When you can truly be held, no matter what you're thinking or feeling or saying, um, that is beautiful. And for us in our relationship, when we reached that point, when we reached the you can know all the intimate things on the inside, and I'll still hold you. That was when our marriage really leapt, really took a big leap in a healthy way.
Yeah. And that comes down to transparency and vulnerability. And it's the foundation of everything that you have in a relationship. Like without it, it's very empty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we will definitely check out the book. And I'm curious, you've accomplished a ton of things personally, professionally with your book. Like, congratulations on all of that.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
what does success look like for you? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's quite simple. It's being able to live as my favorite self. And, my vision of my favorite self, I know exactly what she looks like.
Mm.
And I'm there in so many ways, but there's still a couple areas of growth that I'm still working on. I do, trust me, I love my life, but I also know where my sandpaper is. And I still have some growth areas. I mean, I mentioned it at the start of this podcast about moving. I don't feel like I'm where I belong. Right. So for me, there's like some sandpaper here. Like I know that I am almost to my favorite life. I am so close. There's like some sandpaper in a couple of areas, and I'm actively working on that growth. And for me, success is being able to live my favorite life. Um, and yeah, that's my definition.
I love that. I love that. And if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
You can decide your own value systems. So whatever values you're living by, make sure you chose them and that you are not trapped under a value system that was handed to you by authority figures, family systems, religion, because trying to live under somebody else's value system will crush you. And part of one of the first things to do when defining your favorite life is to begin by clarifying what values mean the most to you. And building a life around your unique value system truly is the beginning steps. And that's what I would want to share with the world, is that you get to write your own value systems. You get to write your own definition of your favorite life. And you do not need to stay stuck or trapped into the expectations and supposed tos and shoulds that may be trapping you where you are today.
And it's a work in progress, right? Like it's okay if they change. It's probably a good thing
Oh,
if they
for sure.
change.
One of the things about purpose, when I talk about purpose in my book, because I do believe in living a life of purpose. I know some people don't love the purpose concept, and that's fine. But for me, I put a comma. It is, what is your purpose, comma, right now?
Mm.
Because I believe it changes. And it's okay if today what excites me to wake up and get out of bed in the morning is one thing, but it might be different in 5 years or 10 years. And there is nothing wrong with it evolving. I think that is part of our growth, is that what drives us can change, and something that might have been your purpose 10 years ago and could have been aligned for you then it might need to be let go of now, and that's okay. You can shift and change and have a different purpose today than you might have yesterday.
Absolutely. So how can people find you? Where can they get your book? How can they work with you?
Yeah. So I love being on Instagram. And so come find me there at the Sophia Hyde. My website is sophiahyde.com. And also, I'd love to offer a giveaway to your audience.
That would be awesome.
Yes, yes. So I will gift a copy of the book, and I did a journal that goes along with it. It's called Your Favorite Self Journal. In my opinion, the journal the book is great. But it's like 66%, it's like 66% memoir and like a third tools,
Mhm.
because people learn through story. So I shared my story and then I shared the tools and then you can go do them. But and it might inspire you just like another, personal growth book might. But the journal will change you, because the
Mhm.
journal requires you to pull it out. I can't know your favorite life for you. I can't answer these questions for you. I showed you what happened when I asked him and what I answered them and some client stories. But when you answer them for yourselves, the book will inspire you, the journal will change you.
Mhm.
And so I'd love to offer a copy of the book and journal. They can enter, we'll put the link in the show notes. And I would also love to gift one complimentary coaching session to somebody in your audience. So if you guys want to enter into the giveaway for the book or for the session, just click the links and I'll make sure Julie has them.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophia. That's amazing. And definitely, people click on the links, go check them out, and go get the book because it is absolutely incredible.
Well, thank you.
Of course. And thank you for being on today. This was amazing.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And
Of
you can
course.
find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And I'll see you on the next episode.